I recently read a story of a transgender youth who committed suicide at the age of 17 because her parents didn't accept her gender identity, and they pushed her further into social isolation. And I address her as her because that is how she identified herself. Um, it's it was an identity that her parents refused to accept, and they still call her death a tragic accident. Tragic accident because, not because, despite the fact that there is a suicide note. Her name was Layla, and that's how she identified herself. And that's all that matters. Does it make her happy? Yes. Does it force you to live in a life that you don't want to live? No, of course it doesn't. So it just blows my mind that it goes beyond that point. At the age of 14, she discovered the word transgender, and it was finally something that she could relate to, something that she could put her finger on, something that could explain the thing that she just couldn't get her head around. Because, as she says, from the age of 4, that's when she felt she was a girl trapped in a boy's body. Something that society around her kept rejecting, but she felt right. She cried of happiness on the inside, as she put it, and she ran to her parents in excitement, told them, and rejected it. They rejected it. They said that it was a phase, and they said that God doesn't make mistakes, and that she was wrong. To paraphrase Leela, if you are a Christian, or if you're just against transgender people or people of alternate sexualities, never, ever, ever say that to your child, or any child for that matter, because you will be your child's bully. You are traumatizing them, and you will never understand that effect because you are not them. And you won't understand it 100% ever in your life, but you can understand more of it if you are exposed to it. Saying that to a child is child abuse. There's no other way of looking at it. Saying that is absolutely traumatic. And you are your child's ghost. You are their memories. Okay, what they remember of their childhood is based around their parents and the people that brought them up. And saying that to them is psychologically scarring. It is trauma. It is abuse. Over the next 3 years, from the ages of 14 to 17, she was removed from school, kept off the internet, social media, put into social isolation, and her final note talks about her descent into suicide. Her self-esteem decimated over the years as a result of parental rejection, harmful anti-therapy. Her mum took her to therapy, and enforced isolation. Leela writes, "When I was 16, I realized that my parents would never come around, and I would have to wait until I was 18 to start any sort of transitioning treatment, which absolutely broke my heart. The longer you wait, the harder it is to transition. I felt hopeless, that I was just going to look like a man in drag for the rest of my life. On my 16th birthday, when I didn't receive consent from my parents to start transitioning, I cried myself to sleep. I formed a sort of a fuck you attitude towards my parents and came out as gay at school, thinking that maybe if I eased into coming out as trans, it would be less of a shock. Although the reaction from my friends was positive, my parents were pissed. They felt like I was attacking their image and that I was an embarrassment to them. If you're one of these parents or people, it has nothing to do with you or your God. It's got everything and only to do with them. Not to do with you, just them alone. So someone's born a male, wants to be a female. Who gives a fuck? The most depressing part about this story is that it's not extraordinary at all. millions of teens are walking this path every day in one way or another. The transgender suicide attempt rate is 26 times higher than that of the general population. Unfortunately, no one will be able to see the amazing and beautiful person Leela could have become. But let's cycle back 3 years. She's 14. She discovers transgender, and she cries of happiness, runs to her parents, and when she tells them, they support her and they love her unconditionally. And she's able to maintain that happiness, and when she goes to school, could come out as trans straight away, as opposed to coming out as something she's not, based on a social construct. And she could also have more time, both her and her parents, to understand it together, constantly being supported to understand something that should never be termed an issue. And at 16, she could have gotten her transitioning treatment. And right now, this video could be about her story of being triumphant as a transgender person. And I could be touched by what she became and what her parents were able to do, because that's ultimately what it should be. But I still want it to be triumphant. And that's why I'm sitting here talking to you about this story if you haven't read it. And the best thing you can do now is to hit the share button and share this video and let people know that this is happening all around them. Your child could be an alternate sexuality. You've got no idea. And if they are, it shouldn't be a problem. But you've got no clue, and you should behave in a way that is accepting of it. All the time, from the get-go. Because people sometimes say that you haven't been an adult, you haven't been a parent, so you don't know what parenting is like. Well, I can tell you that I've been a child before. And I know what being a child is like. And if you're watching this, so do you. We've all been children. Fighting this suicide horror is actually a really simple thing. Leela writes, "My death needs to be counted in the number of transgender people who commit suicide this year. I want someone to look at that number and say, that's fucked up, and fix it. Fix society, please." If you are transgender, you're a beautiful person. And most of all, you're a person. That's what matters. Nothing else.